thank you very much again for coming. I just would like to have a little introductory talk about, and many of them have been already mentioned, at least in part. But I would like to show you a couple of things in order to start a good conversation. So first of all, my name is Péter Hegyi. I am the director of the Budapest Hub of Academia of Europea. Most probably, most of you know about Academia of Europea, but this is an individual membership-based academy which have 4 classes, and the academy is putting their action via actually the knowledge hubs. And the Budapest Knowledge Hub is one of the knowledge hubs of Academia of Europea with specific mission statement. This was established by László Lovász, who was also the former president of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And you can see now the team who is really working on the activity of the Budapest Hub. So what are the real missions we would like to achieve? One of them, the program is from science to society. The other program is from curiosity to career, and the others from barriers or from borders to bridges. I just would like to briefly show you a couple of things we are doing concerning how to translate scientific knowledge actually for society benefits. We are really very active, especially in the translational medicine field, how to take down the discoveries from the shelves and take it back to the patient side. And this part of Academia of Europea is extremely active, and we started 29 different studies, 20 of different projects to bring from knowledge to activity, including this part as well. And of course, we have brilliant collaborators on the line, especially Hungarian Research Network as well, where we try to organize workshops and activities to support the science to society. The other major part is from curiosity to career, when we want to bring young people, high school students, for scientific activities. We try to establish laboratories, we try to establish events. Until now, we are very happy that also Nobel laureates are visiting this program at high schools and coming to motivate young people for science. And we have very specific numbers as well that we try to stimulate young people coming to science. And we started it in biomedical sciences, in which every year 1,500 new high school students, we take them into laboratories at least once, and after we built up a curricula for them already at high school level. And in chemistry and organic synthetic sciences we started, and we are very happy Ferenc Krausz also joined the board with physics, mathematics, informatics. So this program are going. I just show you a picture from the event in a handball arena in Szeged, where last time 1,700 high school students attended. Now for November, 4,000 high school students will come to the science fair. So there are huge activities of this hub. But let's come to the third key area, which we start our activities right now, how to foster collaboration and expand European excellence. And I think in the earlier talks you have already spoken a lot about this, and this widening part, of course, it's not started right now. There are really huge activities, especially by Katalin Solymosi, who's organizing plenty of meetings to prepare young scientists for oral interviews, and of course another very important aspects, the widening women in science. However, let's look at the issues we are speaking today to have a more cohesive European research area. And the big question is, why do we need it? Why in Europe, in all, we need a cohesive European research area? And we must say that widening is not an automatic process. It will not happen if we don't have very specific goals to achieve and very specific part. And this is just Of course, this is just one part of the measurements about the scientific publications, and this is concerning the category of numerical citation impacts, which is available on Web of Science, where one would mean the average of that. And if you look at the trends, how the trends also in Asia, US, and Europe is going, we have to see that we need to think about also changing policies in order to bring this together. And if I look at the best publications, the top 10 publications from each part as well, and we are look at the numbers of these publications which are cited most, we have to see that we need to go forward with it. And also if we look at the gross domestic expenditure, or R&D, and this is like a 10 years part, we also can see that more money, and I was very happy to see also Katalin Solymos's presentation, that we must think about elevating the budget as well for R&D activities. And this is just the summary of where we are currently, and we need to change actually also and put these kind of important elements also for the policy makings. And it was also, Gergő mentioned in the earlier ones, that each country is spending different amount of money on R&D, and some countries are doing and could elevate, like for example Poland, almost could double the amount of money spending on R&D, but however many countries are still lacking to achieve the average support on the R&D activities. So this is a huge challenge of European Union, I must say, that each country spend different amount of monies on R&D. But when I ask, for example, what kind of numbers we should look at for, and maybe not for success, for value, or for a key performance indicator, we just looked at a very simple analysis, looked at 100,000 publications today, which we looked back, in Scopus, and just looked at how much currently the countries collaborating in terms of publishing at the end. So we give plenty of collaborative grants, and we would like to see, of course, that people are collaborating, and what is the outcome. Of course, it's not the total outcome, and there are plenty of measures we can do, but this is, I think, one of them. We have to consider that irrespectively all of our efforts, still 80% of countries, when they do their research, and those who are involved in their research because they are in the publications, they are single country efforts. And if we look at collaboration with US and with Asia, and we look at the countries when these kind of excellent science are running, they are also much more collaborative at different continents than, for example, those countries where the science expenditure and the current level of excellence are lower. So if I go forward, and also would like to understand, this is a mirror, because of course ERC is one of the best things which has happened, to have a mirror for each countries and for everything, how the research money are spent. And this is also just these data, of course, available on the website. So we looked at about the distribution of the money. And if we look at like which countries are benefit the most from the CRC grant, we can see that 9 countries taking 80% of the grants. If I look at other 7 countries, which also are very well funded from the ERC grant, it's 16%. And if I look at 18 countries currently, 18 countries taking only 3.53% of the grants. Of course, it's a mirror. I completely agree that ERC should support excellence, and this is the way we need to go forward. But, for example, this is also a measurement to set an aim, or set another, like I saw the pillar number 4, the widening, to set efforts that when we look at this mirror in 2034, after FP10, this is what we would like to see, or we would like to see differences and widening also the excellence. And why is it important to set up before and after aims? Because if we do today, what we did yesterday, the results will be exactly the same. So, and if we look at, and it was very well said, I love the discussion concerning brain drain and brain gain, but if I look at surveys in Europe and a little bit broader aspects, not only the current European Union countries, but the others, because the European research area is like 50 countries or something like that involved, including those who are outside of the countries. There are plenty of surveys showing that currently, still today, the scientists moving from these countries, the less funded countries, to the better funded countries. And this means that we don't have a uniform or a comprehensive European research area. And why is it important? I would like to tell you one case report, and it's myself. Actually, I was a Wellcome Trust Fellow. I went to the UK in 1999, and I was there for 2 years and did research at Newcastle University. And I was at the stage to coming back to Hungary and establishing my research lab and my research aim in Hungary or stay in the UK. If I looked at the national grant system, and in Hungary there were not grants for establishing a good research environment, but in UK. However, Wellcome Trust had a very good initiative, and this was the Wellcome Trust International Research Development Award, but the major criteria, the eligibility was that this money needed to be spent on the origin of the countries. So if I win this grant, I had to come back to my country, of course, collaborating and plenty of other parts. But this was actually the part we said at home, if I get this grant, that's a very good opportunity to establish myself in Hungary, or I stay in the UK. I wouldn't stand here most probably. If this grant shame is not there, I would have stayed in the UK. So we could establish, there are almost 30 PhD students graduated in the laboratories. And I think what we need, and I also would like to bring it up in the discussion, and I think Pillar 4, which we discussed, the European research area part, could be a good part for that, but we need policy. How to help and how to close these bridges, because without policy, without setting certain amount of money for widening, it will not happen by chance. Of course, there could be plenty of idea what kind of development, initiative, governance and system should be, but if we don't consider that the mirror I showed you on the ERC grants, we would like to see different things in 2034. We will see the same pictures. I looked at also year by year how it's changed. There were some countries which could improve, that most of them stayed as well. So I made my slides before this meeting, but I put challenging a little bit, try to find a bridge and not the drain. And I think this is, if we discuss what you can see currently in the FP10 programs, what we can do, what we should do for widening, that would be brilliant. And I always ask before a meeting, what could be the outcome of the meeting? So if we agree the problem, that what we see a problem, I think this is one thing, is what we should discuss, that do we agree that the European research area should be widening? Then the second issue is that what we can do more for that and what we can put as set up an aim for FP10. And I would like to stop here at that moment, because the second part is that we have here the brilliant mindset here to discuss it, that based on the data I showed you, based on the aims you showed, what do you think, what we can do together for widening the European research area to make Europe more competitive and more successful, also compared with US, Asia, and the other continents. So thank you for being here today. And let's sit outside, and you also can start commenting it from online part as well. Thank you. Okay, so I would like to first ask those who are here, and I also, to the panel, I would like to invite Eva Kondorosi, if it's possible, who is the chairman of Life Sciences and member of Academy of European Board. Thank you very much, Eva, for coming as there for discussion. Eva has a tremendous effort in the present and in the past, and as well as in the future for widening. So now the stage is for comments. Lydia, Joerg, Hank, or anybody else to start with.
One brief comment. I think that already mentioned it in my talk. I think when it comes to the success of also the things that you presented, indeed we need some kind of policy harmonization. And especially when it comes to the fifth freedom, which is key, of course, in the ERA Act. I think that we will not be successful if we don't find ways to organize some kind of a level playing field amongst the researchers, but also indeed to organize that movement that is really needed. And for me, there's another element in there as well, and I think that also Lydia to a certain extent referred to that as well. Organizing more diversity in the participation in all these research projects is not, let's say, some kind of doing good. It's also about organizing quality. What we know for sure is that bringing diverse ideas in, we get better research questions, and we get research that's more relevant to what is really going on in society. So it's also organizing quality when you organize more, let's say, harmonization when it comes to these basic elements that is needed for the fifth freedom.
When we started at the ERC, the widening working group, actually we made a survey with applicants to ERC who were successful and who were not successful. It went out to 1,000 young researchers, and I asked what are the major drawbacks. And it turned out that what was really missing, the international training, spending some time in Western or foreign laboratories. This was most cases missing, and they did not have such a grant system in the countries which would allow really ambitious science. So therefore, the applications which came from these countries, they were not good quality, the writing was not perfect, they did not show anyway the applications to many other colleagues and supervisors, and it was not ambitious because they were afraid to make really very ambitious. They are not used to that one. So I think somehow we have to make an internationalization of the young researchers. We proposed at that time the ERC visiting fellowship scheme, which started, but finally it did not work out because some young people were obliged to make teaching and they had no time. Because I think if they spent already 3 months in an ERC lab, they would learn what is needed for an ERC application and how to prepare. But yeah, it did not work out everywhere.
Thank you.
If I may, I don't know if Joerg has something prepared on the widening or about how FP10 is now. I mean, he already presented, but if he has any comments, maybe rather on more details on the widening and or a reflection to what has been said by Peter.
Yeah, perhaps to comment on the ERC issue. I mean, of course, the figures, Peter, you showed are very clear. It is very difficult for widening countries or for researchers from widening countries to get to the level of the ERC and provide successful application. We know of examples that the widening instruments help to get there. We know of ERA chairs and teaming projects and others that in the next step then indeed brought a successful application for the ERC. But if you see the GDP share, just to stick to that value of the widening countries among the member states is 15%. We are far away from 15% of ERC grantees. But we also have to keep in mind that the population of researchers in many of the widening countries per capita is very small compared to the non-widening countries. So also the question of the relevant population is one that we have to look into. So to come to that level and be competitive at that level is something that doesn't happen overnight. It also requires, of course, that the conditions for the best researchers that come from these countries are also there to stay in these countries or to return to these countries in order to eventually apply successfully for the highly competitive ERC grants. What we can do with the widening instruments, I think we are doing in terms of also now allowing for the ERA chairs, for example, for a variation for ERA research managers that help building capacity for research management in institutions, which again is a key condition in order to be competitive in these bidding processes, because it's not only about being an excellent researcher, it's also about having the infrastructures around you that help you to prepare grants, that help you to run the grants. So what we can do, we are trying to do in the widening component, but of course with the sheer excellence criterion for the ERC, which I think we all agree to, there's a limit to the preparatory work that we can support to that extent.
I think we started with these ERA chairs already maybe 10 years ago.
More than that, yes.
More than that, maybe, okay. But actually the outcome is not so brilliant, I would say. So we would need something which can involve many more people. So I think it's not sufficient. I agree with you that all the countries should put much more money for science and infrastructure to be competitive. So when I visited, for example, Tbilisi, the university, there were excellent students, but the infrastructure was missing really to produce a paper which would go to the highest quality top journals. So there are limitations, and of course the countries should put much more money in science, what they do not do usually. So, but I think the ERA chair alone is not sufficient. So we need something which would involve many more people and many more young scientists and mentors.
Thank you. I think Lydia have been putting her hands up for a long time. Maybe first Lydia and after your
No problem. No problem. Just listening to the very interesting comments and remarks. Yeah, just to say that we fully agree with everything that has been said. And from our part in Science Europe, we did a study with the members of Science Europe that are located in EU 13 countries. In fact, we have a dedicated platform for them. Not only for them, because our perspective is that we should include all members of Science Europe to provide internal support, precisely to make the best out of their investment. So we promote, of course, the increased investment, but that we can only say it. It's up to the member states to decide how much they want to invest in research. We keep promoting it, but then we concentrate more in what can we do within our means. So there are key structural factors, I would say 5, 6, if we include the budget as a structural factor. But there were the members in those countries, in the so-called widening countries, which I say we don't really like this term, is about triggering changes in the research culture, getting more used to, indeed, to exchange programs, to dare to go beyond the establishment and open up to new policies. They are doing that, but it is very slow. The change is very slow. So they believe that attracting and retaining talent, creating the conditions, I think that goes very much in line to what just has been said, creating the conditions to attract and retain talent and creating conditions for brain circulation would help them and would help us all, I think, not them only. Another factor was the capacity building, and capacity building is in, how can I say, in multiple dimensions. Capacity building is not only in terms of research infrastructure, which is of course important, but it's about the capacity to train researchers, the capacity to train research managers, the capacity to train high-level research managers that can draft complex proposals, not only, and I'm not mean anything bad on that, just not only classic research proposals, but really complex collaborative partnership proposals, which they lack. We have testimonies of people not willing to participate in calls, and they can't because they don't have the capacity to prepare the proposals or to follow up the processes. So that is a very important point, the capacity building. Therefore, for that, they propose to create networks at European level, can be beyond, but especially at European level, to learn from other countries that are more experienced, and therefore they can exchange and train. These mutual learning exercises at the management level would be very important, as well as at the research level. So more instruments for research management in terms of proposal application and follow-up. Last but not least, promoting diversity of research was seen as key to success. Because sometimes programs at national level can get too specific according to national agendas. So the international agendas do open up much more. Therefore, they promote also a big promotion of diversity in approaches to research, interdisciplinary research. And I know that this is not a specific of EU13, but it is an opportunity also that includes very much the EU13. So we need to reflect a lot in the framework of the next program, whether we can have a space for truly interdisciplinary programs that can bring together actors from all over Europe and in fundamental research. To me, that will engage all and boost also the participation in many countries and help building capacity.
Thank you, Lydia. I think, Joerg, you also wanted to say something.
Well, I mean, just perhaps on the capacity building and on a couple of points. So capacity building indeed is important, and there the flagship that we have is the teaming actions. And I think that is also where the comment we need to bring more research together, at least at the institutional level, works, because we have seen that these institutions easily then grow to 30, 40, 60 researchers over time. So that creates indeed a very important center of gravity for excellence. We don't have, and I don't think we are in a position to fix that for the widening part, an instrument in our toolbox that allows to deliver on what Lydia described, bringing together institutions in a learning and mentoring element at a larger scale. But we also have to be clear about what is the scope of our intervention that we can achieve. The colleague on the podium said that the ERA chairs, they come with certain limitations, and of course I fully agree on that. We know that one limitation is that the ERA chairholder not always stays there sufficiently with a presence on the spot, and we try to address that with more restrictive call texts in the future. But it's also meant to be an incentive to build up a research team in the institution. So it again requires a buy-in and a commitment from the institution to build up certain structures that we hope to make a contribution to. On the research management, I fully agree with everything that Lydia said. That is key. And not only in terms of making sure that you are better in the bidding process to get grants, it's for the entire ecosystem of the research you are doing. It's also about data stewards, it's about the link with society, making sure that you have a good knowledge valorization. It's not only about getting more money from the framework program, it's a lot broader than that, and that we have to make very clear. So what we have designed now for the years 26, 27 in our work program are two actions. One is what we call a research management facility, where we are bringing together a network of capable organizations that can advise research organizations in the widening countries on how to best upgrade their capacities for research management. And the second one then goes much deeper in the year 2027, where we have the so-called ERA Research Managers Call, where an institution can decide to recruit for the duration of the project a leading research manager from everywhere in the world in order to build up at the institution or increase at the institution the capacities for research management. For us, that's basically the precondition to be really able to play in the top league of the research performing organizations, universities in the framework program. So we hope that we making a good contribution in that direction. And that again is a direct result of the discussions that we had in the ERA Forum and in the dedicated ERA Policy Agenda Action on Research Management to somehow work in that direction where member states say, this is the support that we need. Can we get more support in terms of capacity building for research management? And we try to help you as best as possible.
Thank you. And I would have because we agree on everything almost when we speak together, but just agreeing, without specific goals, specific plans, it's difficult to move direction. I have a very specific a question concerning this widening. So I think all reports show that number of researchers in STEM categories are growing down, and Europe need much more researchers than we have currently. That's a very clear statement of all reports. And currently there are efforts to bring scientists also from outside of the continent and making them to come to Europe. However, the European research area, and as Eva already mentioned, that I think outside of the European Union part, like Georgia, Serbia, Albania, other part, I think we can assume that each country the same amount talents born. So in Europe we have a huge capacity, 450 million, or I don't know how many people. Currently only small amount of people has the facility and the possibility of doing research. So if I think about like somebody from these kind of countries to get support as a stage one to go to a European laboratory, like how Wellcome Trust, I mentioned the example, like for a 2 years grant. And after, if they succeed, there would be another grant for them to going back to establish their laboratory and rising people. So this is like a very specific 2 stages part, how to build up schools. Because without schools, even outside of the EU, we will not going forward. So if I look at like Pillar 4 in European research area, so for example, are there these kind of grants available already? Or is there any possibility to incorporate such a grant system like between 2028 till 2034 like Wellcome Trust had? What should we do to have this there? Because I think we can agree that this model could support the widening, could support establishing schools in Tbilisi, in Tirana, in Belgrade, also in other kind of countries. And after this would elevate the number of researchers also from these countries to come even into the EU to continue the research excellence they have. So specifically, is there any hope or any strategy we can have incorporating such a grant system between 2028 and 2034? What should we do to have a system like that, if we agree that this kind of system would be helpful?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what you describe is very much a research career development mobility scheme, and we have a place for that in the framework program, that is MSCA. And we have always been very careful not to duplicate efforts that are done under MSCA. So the question is, for me then rather, is it an element that can be included under MSCA? I don't really see that as part of the widening effort. Or is it something that is rather requiring national efforts to put up these kind of programs with return grants?
Yeah, but the national efforts is missing. As I said, my example, Hungary had absolutely no intention in 2002 to bring me home, with the grant system. So I think this is, so MSCA doesn't cover to giving money somebody to go back. And this is what I am challenging now.
The chair wanted disagreement, and he gets disagreement. Because, you mentioned, we need more STEM people. I think we need also more assets age people. In the social sciences and humanities, they are equally important for all kinds of, let's say, problematic issues that we have to deal with within the European Union as well. I want to take one step back, and we're talking about, let's say, the lack of national funding. There's a reason for it. I think we discussed yesterday the issue about trust. And I think that, we cannot circumvent that thing that in certain areas, in certain countries, and I'm coming from the Netherlands, we had the same kind of setback in recent years. Populist parties are not very much favoring research. Because, the researchers, science scholars come up with all kinds of facts and insights that, are undermining their policy goals. And I think that in the near future, we will see the same thing. I think that national governments, at least some national governments, will be lagging behind, not spending 3% of the GDP on research and innovation because simply they're not favoring research. So I think when it comes to, let's say, developments in the European Union, Joerg, you not only have to deliver us hope, but you have to deliver us, let's say, results. Because I think that the European Union can organize the fabric, a research fabric, that is really needed to develop the European Union as such. So I think that there's a huge task there for you and the European Commission to make sure that these kind of things happen.
If I may join the discussion, so I really agreed with most of what Lydia said, and I would also like to emphasize the importance of mutual learning exercises and with the Young Academy of Europe, which was founded in 2012 by ERC starting grant winners. So the organization has the knowledge. We organized, as Peter mentioned in his opening talk, several mentoring events in which we try to help EU13 researchers, young researchers, to understand how the evaluation process works, how we organized this year mock oral interviews, but earlier we had a meeting on narrative CVs that Hank mentioned, so something new, which is new to everyone. I mean, it's not new, it has been before, but since then we were widely changing to the shorter CV version, so it's something that now comes back, and people need to understand how to write a good CV, how to write a good proposal. So these are all important things we try to improve via mentoring or this kind of sharing knowledge. And with the Academia Europaea Budapest Hub, as Peter also mentioned, we launched projects, and one of our projects that I'm co-leading with Tamás Bekes-Sonfai is about widening. So how we will try to look for for solutions, try to look for lessons to learn from researchers who were successful, from institutions who are successful in getting ERCs, attracting talent and attracting successful grantees. Also, as Lydia mentioned, and also Joerg, so we all agree about the importance of the administrative support, and that's something that is, I really think, a little bit lagging behind. This is a question of professionally well-trained administrators who can help with grant writing, science communication, everything that was mentioned before. But that's also a question of money, and I cannot stop, I'm not able not to mention that there are issues with the salaries. It's not attractive for administrative staff, or in other cases, universities are not able to allow or to have and to find the best experts in EU 13 countries. Of course, I understand it's a question of the institution's dedication to try to attract talent, but we should also imagine that we are not competitive with salaries outside of EU 13 countries, at least I'm talking for Hungary. And that's an issue that I'm often raising, and I know it's very provocative, and I also agree. I think Lydia already heard last year in the Science Europe conference in Budapest. It's a quite provocative thought, but it was one ERC starting grant winner, a Hungarian one, who told me that the problem with ERC is also that you cannot cannot necessarily engage best talent because there were some rules that the person you engage in your ERC project as a postdoc cannot have a higher salary than postdocs in your institute. Maybe it's no longer valid, but he also mentioned that that's a big barrier to attract the best talents for his ERC grant. Maybe it's no longer, I'm not sure they were. Okay, maybe it's a problem with the institutions, because I know it was, maybe it's kind of institutional policy.
Yeah, at the academy institutes it was not a problem, so you can give really the salary what you want, or what is allowed by the ERC.
Yeah, and with the coefficients, these country coefficients, the major, shocking number or thought that this ERC starting grant winner shared is that if you want someone to work in a research environment which is probably not so positive, optimistic, or not the best one, like in Western Europe, where many people are working in excellent hubs surrounded by excellent instruments and infrastructure and administrative hubs. So if you want to go to a country where all this is not existing, then it's not good that with the allowance rate calculations for ERC and MSCA, you have much lower salaries. And the example he used was that if you want to get someone to work in Siberia or in a desert or in the Arctic Sea on an oil drilling tower, you should not pay less for the person to go there, just the other way around. I know that's a very, provocative thought. I just wanted to share that money is something which might also help, but of course we need to change the research culture, and that's the hardest thing and slowest thing to achieve.
Thank you, Joerg.
Yes, I have to make a couple of comments. To start with the country coefficients that we have for the ERC and the MSCA, they are there for the reason, because they reflect also the economic situation in the countries. You need a different salary in Norway than you need in Greece, and that is reflected in that coefficient.
I'm just sorry to disturb you, but this is what I would say we disagree, because if there is a researcher in Germany and you would like to attract a postdoc in Budapest, and you tell the postdoc that you will pay only 10,000 euros, and somebody in Oslo saying, I am paying for you 40,000 euros because it's a lot from my budget, this postdoc, if there is in the middle, they will choose Oslo and not in Budapest. So I think this is what Katalin said, that with this range, there are definitely people will go to be the best ones as a postdoc to Oslo.
Yeah.
I am not fully agreeing with this one, sorry. Because I think a scientist would go to a place where you really have scientific excellence. And this is not necessarily the salary. So if you have something which is really interesting, and you will go there. And I do not see now so much difficulties with the salaries. You can pay from your ERC money the salary, which would be attractive. I think the problem is that we are less attractive. So they would rather go to Netherlands or UK or Germany than to come to Hungary, not talking about Szeged or other cities which are not in the center of the country. So for me...
And if I may, the problem is not during the grant, the problem is afterwards. What is the incentive for people that have the ERC or MSCA salary to stay in the institution and then go back to the local salary? That is the real issue. And there I have to somehow disagree with the expectations on our contribution to the fabric. I think we're doing a lot on the R&I fabric in terms of framework conditions for excellence in R&I, everything that we do with the ERA policy agenda, the ERA forum, with the support that we give to implementing these policies in our grants in general and specifically in the ERA part. But the figures that you showed, Peter, on the R&I investments, if a country over decades invests less than 0.5% of the GDP in R&I, that's the fabric that you create. And if that doesn't change, you can't expect to have an attractive R&I landscape that is globally competitive. You have to make choices in terms of where do you see the relevance of R&I in your country is, and that I agree it can change over political cycles. Even Germany is not free from that. But if you continue to invest at such a low level, what is the message to your R&I community? Of course, you create huge pressure for them to go elsewhere, and you create a very low incentive for people to come. And there's nothing that the framework program can do to change that. Let's be clear about that.
Sorry, Peter, you invited me in the name of the InnoScience Hungary to this panel meeting. And why I would like to contribute to this discussion is that we have a trial which is really an American-styled experiment, because I have a strong Southern Californian background. And I don't want to talk about the scientific problems on which we are working together with the industry or so. The fund was established by a 92-year-old lady whom daughter died in England, and her flat was sold and the money was put into the fund. So then we decided to solve some of these problems on which you are discussing too, because you told lots of excellent things from the top down, investment into the science, but you haven't told anything about the bottom up, which means that in Europe, comparing to US, and I also have some experience in Japan when I have a laboratory for 6 years running, and I govern it from Budapest. There is no bottom-up money coming into the science. This is the main problem. So donation is absent. Just remember that the Zuckerberg Foundation has a cell biology research place governed by Chan. She is a Chinese origin, and spent, as far as I know, $27 billion for research from private money. So what I am talking about is that the U.S. experience or the good, I think that's a good practice, really, that they have several opportunities, somebody to start, because in the recent system, it is impossible to start. That's the problem. You should go somewhere as a slave and work with a big boss. That's it. And when it is finished, you lose your job, you have no salary. So this is what we solved, so that we tried to find some money for science from not governmental resources. And the only possibility in this area of the globe is that you have to go to the industry, because the countries where the new top class is developing, the top class doesn't spend money for science at all. This is not true in U.S. Just remember the Bill Gates Foundation, and that's why you went to the industry. But for getting successful, you need some sort of technical excellence. And if there is no technical excellence to add to the industrial research, it is impossible. How to get that? There is one thing which was working in our practice, that we bought lots of equipment which were thrown away in rich British laboratories, and I imported here 1 pound per kilo. And actually we have more than 200 such kind of equipment which are beautifully working. So this is one way which we can do. I know it is not an official and not an organized something, but it's working. And also the salary problem here in Hungary is mostly because of the limitations of the institutes. They limit the salaries on a very low level. And would it so that we separate it from the institute into a private investment, and actually nobody can tell me how much money I pay for a postdoc. And I pay about 3 times more than the institute. So I think if we are thinking about such kind of solutions, which I know as a little bit cowboy type, but a little bit bottom up, to help donation and help private efforts more than we do, then we can do some steps. And I agree, it's very different to organize from top down, because nobody knows the situation actually in a certain place. But I had 37 PhD students and graduated, and only 5 is in the science now. You know, so this is a big problem, and then we decided to do it privately. And our major problem is how to fill up the treasury of the fund when it is getting low. And this is on which we are working together with the industry. So thank you. That's for hearing me, but that's a solution.
Just one addition. I think that also the government can do a lot indeed to, let's say, make industry more aware of the fact that they have a role to play there, and make it more attractive to organize, let's say, the money issue from bottom up. For instance, in Sweden, industry gets tax reduction when they put money into a foundation that's really only about subsidizing research. So there's also already a benefit organized by the central government for doing so. So I would have liked the Dutch government to organize the same thing in the Netherlands as well. But I think it's a great idea that you really organize the industry in that way as well, because they're really depending on what we are doing.
I agree with you, and it is started in Hungary as well, I let you know, because the Gedeon Richter factory has a research ecosystem in which the factory spends lots of money for research on new drug targets. And they spent money there, and they applied for grants for that. And that's why my little company is a public benefit company, and then the factory can subtract the support money from the tax, and this is the way how we can work. And it needs lots of work, I can say, but that's working.
Any other comments? Eva?
Yeah, we have the problems with the countries, the governments, that they do not support really the science. We do not have the fortunate situation which was here 200 years ago when the Hungarian Academy of Sciences started, when there was really big donations to support science. On the other hand, we have talents also in Hungary, but also in other countries, and practically there is no money from these governments to support science and young researchers or researchers at all. So the question is, what can we do? Because on one hand, we are going to lose these people if we do not find some general solution. We cannot change too much the government because they are not listening to us. So what can we do? Okay, we have the cost actions. This can be something which can help a little bit, but I heard that maybe even the budget for the cost is reduced, and no, okay, maybe this is, but it should be maybe more extended or giving more money, and this can maybe help. And I would focus more on really on the research excellence, not so much on the management. Because let's say with the ERC, now you do not have so much problem with the grant management. With the lump sum system, it can work really well, and making the application, this is really not a terribly big problem. But really, how to support science, scientific excellence, and not to lose the talents which exist in Europe. So that's a big question, because then China will come, and maybe we can import some Chinese scientists to Europe now to enhance a little bit the scientific excellence.
Perhaps I can briefly come in, since cost was mentioned a couple of times. So first of all, we are fully committed to the cost program, and as you saw on my slide, we anticipate this will be continued under the widening component. What we are currently doing with the cost members, or the countries that are representing cost and the cost association, is to look into improving what we call the efficiency of the implementation. So we try to change the ratio of how much money goes into grants and how much money goes into program administration towards getting more money into grants. So that, I think, is a positive aspect. But of course, this is first of all networking and not supporting the research effort as such. And I just want to underline again that the massive volume that we are moving here with the widening program. I mean, if you see the number of grants that we are supporting with the twinning actions, with the ERA chairs, with the ERA fellowships that complement the MSCA actions, I think there are ample opportunities for countries to participate. And so my plea is really here, use these possibilities more, because we see also from Hungary that the number of applications that we are getting is low to moderate compared to the research population. So I think there is a lot of potential there to get more from the widening part of the work program. And so if there's any interest for dedicated info sessions, we're happy to do that. We have a very strong NCP network that is able to provide services far beyond the normal support, so they can do pre-proposal checks and other things. So use that possibility, because I have the feeling that in some countries this is really underutilized, and perhaps that's the last remark I want to make before I have to say also goodbye, because I have a next meeting. Another reason for us proposing these two categories of countries, widening countries versus transition countries. If you look at the big projects, the teaming projects, by removing the transition countries from that competition, you automatically increase the chances of applicants from the widening countries to be successful. We have the current ongoing teaming call, where we had 50% of the applications coming from what we call in the future widening countries. But invitation to stage 2 was only 30% of the proposals. So we have to somehow also be fair in the process of the applications, that we do not support capacity building beyond the necessary part, because all countries need support for capacity building, non-widening and widening countries alike, but we have to focus our efforts on those where the need is most articulated, and that is what we propose in the future for the category of widening countries. Other than that, I thought the discussion was very interesting and luckily at some point also controversial. So many thanks for that. I have to apologize, but I really have now to run for another meeting that started some minutes ago. Many thanks for having organized that. Many thanks for the co-speakers. And I wish you a good part and continuation of the conference. Many thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Joerg. And after this meeting, we will come back about continuing written the discussion, what we can do for better and wider European research area. So thank you very much for coming. And I think we also, the others also, we need to, I think, at one point close the meeting. So I would like to ask everybody for final comments, and the next one would be Lydia. That's what is your message, or what is your final comments on the online discussion here today?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, Peter, thank you very much for this excellent event and for inviting us and for accepting Joerg and me online. I know it is not the same, but I'm super happy to have been able to participate, at least in this way. Then I would like to make maybe two final messages. One for the short-term kind of low-hanging fruits, and another more for the long-term thinking and preparation for the next framework program, and etc. In the short term, I fully agree and fully subscribe what Katalin says and others about the lack of capacity, and what Joerg mentioned about the opportunities, existing opportunities not being used as much as they could. Of course, that's Joerg's perspective as the funder. Say, okay, we could receive more, but the fact is that when we then go to your communities, they say is that we can't. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we can't. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the skills. So one recommendation is, please reach out. Please tell us. I don't know, use your network, use me. Reach out and say, we would like to prepare an application of this, but we don't have the means. Do you know someone could assist? And I could put you in contact perhaps with other people. I cannot assure an outcome, but at least I can try and use my network to see if we can identify who could help, no? Or who could train, or who could advise or consult, whatever. You know, so to me, one recommendation is reach out, because there are networks, and not only Science Europe, there are university networks, there are research and technology networks that maybe can also come on board, you know? And so that's my reflection for the short term. We are aware of the limitations. Sometimes we are not aware of the opportunities that are lost unnecessarily, or that at least could be mitigated. The second, it is more for the long term. By addressing European issues, we are addressing also global issues. The global issues that we see, the threats we see, are also within Europe. So my reflection is, let's look at Europe not with closed eyes to only resolve or address European problems, but use Europe as our own living example to address the global problems. Because in my experience when dealing with issues with UNESCO, UN, United Nations, OECD, the Global Research Council, etc., if I reflect a bit, I see Europe replicating those problems. So let's use Europe as a good example to reflect on ourselves, but also at the global level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Okay. Eva?
Yeah, let's be optimistic. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what I can say. Let's hope that maybe also the countries will realize that they should invest in science, and maybe so this is needed also for the survival of the country. So let's hope that there will be some change, and we are going to have more support, and we have to work really on how to be really in the international scientific framework. So we have to really work on to reach out, as Lydia said also, to have the opportunities really to be successful.
My final comment is related to what Lydia already said, and one of the commitments of Coara is indeed the exchange of practices and experiences to enable mutual learning within and beyond the coalition, which is commitment number 8 in our, let's say, starting document. And I think that a lot can be done also learning from each other through these national chapters. We're bringing these national chapters more and more together. And I think that's also, let's say, a part and parcel of the obligation that we have as the Coara organization to indeed make this more effective, that mutual learning, because I think that would be the way forward to indeed organize more movement within the European Union and organize more success within widening programs of other parts of the European Union as well.
Yes, I would just like to comment that I think we agree on many things, and on many others we don't necessarily agree, but I think we should learn from each other and maybe have platforms where we discuss widening issues, the success and the problems of the previous widenings measures, because there were some criticism raised within Europe in some of these. And yeah, if we discuss them, maybe together we are able to identify the barriers that are present in these countries. And I really do hope that there could be commitment, not only necessarily from, we are expecting the national governments to invest or institutions to invest, but I indeed believe that the widening measures and the European Union should also try to find ways across all the FP10 and maybe all pillars to somehow improve and increase the participation of researchers from EU13 countries in the European science landscape or research and innovation landscape. So I hope I'm positive, but we should have maybe more occasions and discussions like this.
Thank you very much, Kata, and I also would like to close it. And of course, yes, difficult to be optimistic, to be sure, in some extent. I completely agree, and I would like to come back to Eva's comment. We discussed plenty of things today, agree, disagree, and so on. We completely agree plenty of things we cannot change. We agree that more private money could come. Can we change it? We can't. We agree that the government would put more money. Can we, in this table or in this society, can we do that? Unfortunately, I am not too much optimistic that they are, because not researchers sitting, in the government, and not only researchers deciding who should be the next government. So I think, and we will continue this discussion, this is just the kickoff time, to think what currently, as also Lydia said, low-hanging fruit, and what kind of longer aim like for widening between 2020 and 34, because I think if we just always look at the mirror and finally saying that we don't like what we see, it will not change for sure. So I think we will try to put together, to write down what we don't like currently in the mirror. And as we discuss what value, what things we would like to see in 10 years term or something like that, and maybe to discuss that what kind of actions we can put to the knowledge we discussed it here. So thank you very much for everybody for coming. Today we will, of course, put together a memo and further discussing the issue, and of course further comments can come to this issue. So thank you very much for coming today.